And now some other observations. Within our rapidly growing research activities at QUT, and there's one figure which you may be interested in, which is that our growth in research income is 250% of the national average for universities in the last 6 years. The Faculty of Education has been acknowledged by my colleague, Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research, Professor Arun Sharma, as the faculty that's probably got the most runs on the board in a very focused way, developing a stronger research culture. And there are two things about that. One of them is they've become quite clear that they're attracting greater HDR numbers, and as in many countries, HDR students who complete result in quite a substantial direct income benefit for the university in subsequent years. So they're quite clear about that. So we could see that in terms of summing this part of what I want to say up, what we get is greater visibility. We get a direct impact on those metrics that matter for the purpose of ranking research. We get new readerships in different parts of the world and in our own country in more isolated areas. And we attract HDR students. One of the things that's also started to happen is that some faculties, and I'm thinking again of education here, have developed their own processes within their research activities of trying to encourage depositing behaviour. One of those is, if you hear that you've been accepted for publication and you get your postprint into the university repository within a week, the Dean's office will have a little reward for you. It's a very poverty-stricken faculty, so the reward is a high-quality coffee voucher. But nevertheless, I didn't know this, and I heard the Dean of Education presenting about it, and they'd been doing it for some time. More seriously, in that faculty, most faculty are encouraged to put their link to their work in the ePrints repository under their email signature. So if they send any communication and someone wants to get a sense of what their work is, they can simply click on that link and go straight to the collection of their works. And very importantly, we've just released in the last year an academic staff profile system which you link to from the staff directory, which is in common with many universities on the front page of the website, and that takes you immediately to links to the works in this repository. Some other impacts that I've mentioned, and this is probably more of interest to folk who have a library background or an IT background. There's a new kind of partnership that's required in new forms of research as well. I don't want to swamp this discussion with trends in e-research and the rapidity with which research techniques are changing around the world, but there's a question that comes up about how one might access in future data in a systematic way, as well as the scholarly output that's associated with that. And there's some other roles that have developed in terms of this much clearer partnership with the Office of Research and the university, library and IT areas. Now I want to talk about the green and gold question, and I should explain that green is a shorthand way of describing an approach to open access which I have just described. It's what an institution does in order to generate greater institutional and individual profile. And it happens alongside the acceptance of manuscripts for publication in the scholarly literature as we know it. The second, for which the term is gold, and many of you may well know this, is where the actual model is one in which the journal functions as a journal, but its outputs are in open access. And it has a requirement to then develop a new funding stream, and it does this with inputs either from a sponsoring organisation, if you're in a situation where an area will actually support an open access journal. I saw one of those earlier this week in the law faculty at the University of Pretoria, and there are a variety of those. Or if it's one of the large publishers, such as PubMed and so on, the revenue is generated by an author fee or some kind of input fee from the institution. And that fee can typically be in the region of $2,000 to $3,000 US. Now, there are many researchers for whom that concept is alien and repugnant. Nevertheless, there is a rising tide of open access quality literature that is available through such portals as PubMed, PubMed Central, Public Library of Science, and so on. And it's very important and interesting to track those because they also bring the prospect of value-added services in scholarly communication beyond the article. At QUT, we didn't have a kind of a doctrinaire view about whether one of these was better than the other, and we decided to support, for some of our scientific output, a gold approach if a scientist had a manuscript accepted for publication in one of those high-profile open access journal publishers. It's an important distinction, of course, and sometimes I've found that discussions or debates about open access often require you to step back and ask whether someone is talking about the model that I've just described as gold, and which I know is of interest here, or the model which I have previously described as green. I'll come back to that poser from the Wellcome Trust as I wrap up.